had Trackblazer for a couple of days, so here's a couple of basic tips to help improve your runs. First off, you have a side quest that you want to complete during your run. The Mastered Fleet Hammer gives a 35% increase to stat gains from races, and you want to collect 3 of these items throughout your playthrough to use during the Twinkle Climax at the very end, as each of those races give you a decent chunk to every stat, which do get boosted up by this item, making them the best 3 races to use them on, so you want to make sure that you at least save 3 of them for the climax at the very end. As for the rest of your items, such as your energy boosters, the 60% megaphones, reset whistles, and the training weights, it's very useful to save these items for the summer camps during the career. As you're going to be doing a lot of races during this scenario, your facilities are going to be pretty underdeveloped, so stacking megaphones and training weights during summer camps where they're all level 5, and then using energy items to make sure that you can use every single turn of the summer camp for training can give you a pretty big boost to your stats line. Follow for more horse. We've had Trackblazer for a couple of days, so here's a couple of basic tips to help improve your runs. First off, you have a side quest that you want to complete during your run. The Mastered Fleet Hammer gives a 35% increase to stat gains from races, and you want to collect 3 of these items throughout your playthrough to use during the Twinkle Climax at the very end, as each of those races give you a decent chunk to every stat, which do get boosted up by this item, making them the best 3 races to use them on, so you want to make sure that you at least save 3 of them for the climax at the very end. As for the rest of your items, such as your energy boosters, the 60% megaphones, reset whistles, and the training weights, it's very useful to save these items for the summer camps during the career. As you're going to be doing a lot of races during this scenario, your facilities are going to be pretty underdeveloped, so stacking megaphones and training weights during summer camps where they're all level 5, and then using energy items to make sure that you can use every single turn of the summer camp for training can give you a pretty big boost to your stats line. Follow for more horse. We've had Trackblazer for a couple of days, so here's a couple of basic tips to help improve your runs. First off, you have a side quest that you want to complete during your run. The Mastered Fleet Hammer gives a 35% increase to stat gains from races, and you want to collect 3 of these items throughout your playthrough to use during the Twinkle Climax at the very end, as each of those races give you a decent chunk to every stat, which do get boosted up by this item, making them the best 3 races to use them on, so you want to make sure that you at least save 3 of them for the climax at the very end. As for the rest of your items, such as your energy boosters, the 60% megaphones, reset whistles, and the training weights, it's very useful to save these items for the summer camps during the career. As you're going to be doing a lot of races during this scenario, your facilities are going to be pretty underdeveloped, so stacking megaphones and training weights during summer camps where they're all level 5, and then using energy items to make sure that you can use every single turn of the summer camp for training
Professor David J. Malin. I teach computer science at Harvard, and I'm here today to answer your questions from Twitter. This is Computer Science Support. First up, from Tad Proletarian. How do search engines work so fast? Well, the short answer really is distributed computing, which is to say that Google and Bing and other such search engines, they don't just have one server, and they don't even have just one really big server. Rather, they have hundreds, thousands, probably hundreds of thousands or more servers nowadays around the world. And so when you and I go to Google or Bing and maybe type in a word to search for, like cat, it's quite possible that when you hit enter and that keyword like cats is sent over the internet to Google or to Bing, it's actually spread out ultimately across multiple servers, some of which are grabbing the first 10 results, some of which are grabbing the next 10 results, the next 10 results, so that you see just one collection of results, but a lot of those ideas, a lot of those search results came from different places. And this eliminates what could potentially be a bottleneck of sorts if all of the information you needed had to come from one specific server that might very well be busy when you have that question. Nick asks, will computer programming jobs be taken over by AI within the next 5 to 10 years? This is such a frequently asked question nowadays, and I don't think the answer will be yes. And I think we've seen evidence of this already, in that early on, when people were creating websites, they were literally writing out code in a language called HTML by hand. But then, of course, software came along, tools like Dreamweaver that you could download on your own computer that would generate some of that same code for you. More recently, though, now you can just sign up for websites like Squarespace and Wix and others, whereby click, 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 and the website website is generated for you. So I dare say, certainly in some domains, that AI is really just an evolution of that trend, and it hasn't put humans out of business as much as it has made you and I much more productive. AI, I think, and the ability soon to be able to program with natural language is just going to enhance what you and I can already do logically, but much more mechanically. And I think, too, it's worth considering that there's just so many bugs or mistakes in software in the world, and there's so many features that humans wish existed in products present and future that our to-do list, so to speak, is way longer than we'll ever have time to finish in our lifetimes. And so I think the prospect of having an artificial intelligence boost our productivity and work alongside us, so to speak, as we try to solve problems is just going to mean that you and I and the world together can solve so many more problems and move forward together at an even faster rate. All right, next up, Sophia, who asks, how do microchips even work? It's just a green piece of metal. Well, here, for instance, we have a whole bunch of microchips on what's called a logic board, or sometimes known as a motherboard. There's a lot of ports that you might be familiar with, for instance. Like, here are some ports for audio, here's some ports for networking, here's some ports for USB and some other devices as well. And those ports, meanwhile, are connected to lots of different chips on this board that know how to interpret the signals from those ports. And perhaps the biggest chip on this motherboard tends to be this thing here called the CPU, or the Central Processing Unit, which is really the brains of the computer. And what you can't necessarily quite see, because most of this is actually paint and not traces, but if I flip this around, you'll actually see in the right light and with the right angle a whole bunch of traces running up, down, left, and right on this logic board that's connecting all of these various microchips. And by trace, I mean a tiny little wire that's been etched into the top or the bottom of this circuit board that connects two parts thereon. Now, what might these microchips be doing? Well, again, they might be simply interpreting signals that are coming in from these ports. Two, they might be performing mathematical operations, doing something with those signals in order to convert input into output, or they might just be storing information ultimately. In fact, there's all different types of memory on a logic board like this, be it RAM or ROM or the like, and so some of those chips might very well be storing information for as long as the computer's plugged in, or in some cases, depending on the device, even when the power goes off. All right, next, a question from NKA Chi. So if anyone can learn coding, what do computer scientists do for 4 years in university? Typically in an undergraduate program in computer science or computer engineering or a similar field, someone spends much more time learning about the field itself than about programming specifically. So as such, you might study not only a bit of programming, but also mathematics, certain fundamentals that transcend the particular classes you might have taken in middle school or high school, but that can be used to solve grander real-world problems. You might learn something about networks, how you can send information from point A to point B. You might learn about graphics, how you can display things on the screen or even create interactive animations or the like. You might learn how to leverage certain ideas from mathematics and other fields to implement your very own artificial intelligence nowadays, whereby you use probability and statistics and information more generally to try to predict what an intelligent individual, or in this case computer, might say in response to a question. So computer science itself is a very broad field, and programming is really just a tool that you tend to learn along the way. For Maya Shelby, how do zeros and ones turn into the internet? Well, I think the simplest answer there is that the internet is built upon layers and layers and layers of ideas. And if we start at the lowest of those levels, zeros and ones, you have something called binary, where zeros and ones can be used to represent any other numbers as well. And if we use more and more zeros and ones, more and more binary digits or bits, so to speak, we can count up higher and higher and higher. And then if you and I agree that, all right, well, let's not just use these patterns of zeros and ones to represent numbers. What if we reserve some of these patterns to represent letters of like the English alphabet? And then maybe you and I can decide to reserve certain patterns of zeros and ones to represent colors like red and green and blue and combinations thereof. Well, once we have the ability to represent colors, we could then represent whole pictures, because what's a picture on your phone or a computer screen? Well, it's really just a grid of dots, each of which has its own color. So this is all to say that even if we start at this lowest level of just zeros and ones, so long as you and I and all of the devices we use agree to follow some standard like this, we can build these layers and layers of abstraction, so to speak, on top of one another, until finally you and I come up with a pattern of zeros and ones that represents send this piece of information from me over there. And thus we have something like the internet. Majinbu asks, Can someone that knows computer science explain to me why computers use binary coding and not trinary, when trinary is supposed to be faster? So it's not necessarily the case that a trinary system, which would use 3 symbols, for instance 0, 1, and 2, would necessarily be faster than binary, because binary, using just 0 and 1, tends to be simpler to implement and also more robust to potential errors. Or if you're familiar with voltage levels, like in a battery, it's very easy for a computer to distinguish something for like 0 volts or 3 volts. But it gets a little harder if we try to draw the line somewhere in between, because there's just a higher probability that a computer might mistake a voltage level like 1.5 in the middle as maybe being a little closer to off than on, or to on than off. Here too is where, even though there might be mathematical efficiencies and real world efficiencies to using trinary, otherwise known as ternary, like a 0, a 1, and a 2 digit, instead of just 0s and 1s, it turns out because our world runs on electricity nowadays and there's so much momentum behind binary, that it just tends to be a net positive. Rachel P95 asks, why is every Windows solution, have you tried restarting, and why does that always work? So that's a very heavy-handed solution to what are typically just bugs or mistakes in software, for instance, Windows in this case. Restarting a computer just starts everything from scratch. So all of the computer's short-term memory is lost and everything starts in pristine condition, which is to say that it starts in exactly the way that the programmers at Microsoft intended, without potentially the distractions of the computer being in some weird state or condition that the programmers just didn't anticipate. Maybe you clicked on some buttons in a weird order, maybe you opened a strange file, but maybe you got the computer into a state that just wasn't programmed for properly. Jason Whitmer now asks, what's the best operating system? Well, this is one of these questions in computing we would call a religious question, since it evokes a religious debate as to which might be best. Of course, among the most popular operating systems out there are Windows and Mac OS, but there's also one you might not have heard of, which is called Linux, which is actually very omnipresent in the enterprise world. So many of today's servers actually run Linux. So many of today's desktops or laptops, though, run Windows or Mac OS. Now, that's not to say you couldn't run all of those operating systems in different contexts, and some of us do actually run Linux on our own computers, so a lot of it really boils down to personal preference. I wouldn't even say that there's one best operating system, but there tend to be correlations between the operating systems people use and the applications they have in mind. So Windows, for instance, is so popular in the world of PCs and desktops and laptops. Mac OS is to some extent, particularly in academia and certain countries, but not necessarily on the same scale. Linux, by contrast, is again very much used heavily in the server-side industry, but so is Windows as well. So a lot of the choice for operating systems sometimes comes from just what's most appropriate, what's most popular, what's most supportive, but some of it comes too from just personal preference of the engineer, maybe the first engineer that you hire to make one of those decisions. So it's more about what's best for you and not so much best.
Hi, my name is Bruni Brizi. I'm a creative coder and a fan of rock music. I've worked with big agencies, small design studios, and production companies alike, creating visuals for Dell, Adidas, Universal Music, and others. Experimenting with creative coding never gets boring. There's always something to explore, new techniques to learn, or new images to create. Playing with it, I merged my interest in motion graphics and visuals with programming.
In general. Next, Giulio Magnifico asks, why aren't computers getting cheaper? Well, computers, or at least computer parts inside of computers, do tend to get cheaper. The catch is that your expectations and my expectations just keep rising. We want our phones, our laptops, our desktops to do more and more in the way of the software that they run, the games that we use, and just how quickly they perform for us. So even though some of those parts are getting less expensive, you and I want them to do more and be faster and larger in quantity. And so as a result, I dare say that the price isn't going down as far as you might hope. That said, nowadays you can get for the same amount of money from yesteryear much, much more in the way of computing power, so arguably it's working to our benefit in some cases. Next up, from Darrow Nabilo. Can someone explain cloud computing to me like a 5-year-old? Cloud computing is essentially you using someone else's servers that someone is paying to rent, for instance, or timeshare. So this isn't really a new idea or a new technology. Rather, it's a better branding of a technique that's been used for years, not just in the computer world, but in the real world as well, whereby someone like Google or Microsoft or Apple or others nowadays might be able to afford lots and lots and lots of servers and then make those servers available in part to me, to you, and many other customers as well. Hey, I'm Marcus. Hey, Marcus. Well, Marcus asks, how does computer memory work? Think of computer memory as really being driven by a whole bunch of switches that can either be turned on and off. So for instance, if I take this here light switch, which is currently off, I could simply say that this switch here is representing the number 0 in binary. But if I turn the switch on, well, now I can say that I'm representing the number 1. Now, of course, I can only count as high as 0 to 1 with a single light switch, but what if I bring over a second light switch like this one here? If we start at 0 in this way, turn on this switch first and claim that it's 1, let me now be more creative and turn this one off and this one on, and now claim this is how a computer's memory could represent the number 2. And now if I turn this switch back on, giving me a fourth pattern, this is how I might represent the number 3. Now, of course, if we add more and more of these switches, more and more of these light bulbs, we can count even higher than 3. And indeed, that's what a computer's memory is ultimately doing. It's using lots and lots of little tiny switches, otherwise known as transistors, to turn the flow of electricity on and off. And then it's got other types of hardware called, for instance, capacitors that have a capacity to hold on to some of that electricity, just like the light bulb there being on. All right, next, Donnie asks, how do you explain Web 3 to people? So Web 3, like Web 2 and retrospectively Web 1, are really just buzzwords that describe sort of phases of the internet or the World Wide Web as you and I know it. For instance, back in the day when there was just the World Wide Web, now perhaps referred to as Web version 1, information was largely static. If you were to create a website on the internet, you would type up your code, you would type up your content, you would put it on a server somewhere, and someone could read that information. But it was you, the web developer, or you, the owner of the website, that was creating that content for other people to actually read and consume. In Web 2, the world became much more dynamic in recent years, whereby now websites tend to have databases and they have more sophistication, so that a lot of the content in websites today are actually coming from me and from you. So if you think of any social media site, it's not the owners of those sites that are creating most of the content, it's you and me as the users of those same websites. But in Web 2, everything is nonetheless very centralized. Whether you're Twitter or Facebook, now Meta, or other companies, all of that data, even in the world of social media, that's coming from me and you, is actually being stored centrally on those companies' servers. So Web 3.0, or Web 3, so to speak, is really about transitioning away potentially from that very centralized model to one that's more distributed, where the data that you and I are creating, whereby the data you and I are consuming, is actually distributed over multiple servers, over a technique called blockchain, for instance, in some cases, whereby there's not necessarily one owner of that data, but really collective ownership and therefore verification that the data maybe indeed came from me and you. Next, a question from Gomo Tigers. Can someone explain to me the difference between firmware and software? Hardware is physical, software is code. WTF is firmware? Firmware is really a synonym for a type of software. So firmware is just software, but it tends to be software that comes built into your hardware. And you can think of, in the simplest scenario, that firmware is software that is just completely integrated into the hardware and itself cannot be changed or even upgraded. But that's a bit of an oversimplification, because even firmware, typically, when it comes in a computer, when it comes in a phone or some other device, can very often be updated. Why? Because the firmware is the software that's really closest to the hardware, and in that sense, it might very well be the most important. And if anything goes wrong with the firmware, you might not even be able to turn that device on, whether it's a phone, a computer, or even your refrigerator nowadays. All right, that's all the questions for today. We hope you learned a little something along the way. We'll see you next time.
When I had the chance to be on the advisory board, honestly, my mind, my eyes, everything lit up, because I think it's such an exciting time to be in a degree like this, which is essentially shaping the degree of tomorrow in a very fast-paced and changing industry, where we're seeing an intersect of creativity.
Hi besties, I'm Vivian Tu, a former Wall Street trader, financial educator, and the CEO of Your Rich BFF. Today, I'm taking questions from the internet. This is Personal Finance Support. User Chocolate Rain comments, it's very odd how these companies are almost begging customers to split payments / buy in for, etc. Something is off. I hear you. Buy in for, Afterpay, like the Klarna conversation of it all. It all started from a good place. The background is these companies were utilized often to provide credit to underbanked communities. So people who couldn't necessarily get credit in a traditional way, they couldn't necessarily get credit cards or loans from banks. People could use these programs to purchase major things like refrigerators, appliances, a new laptop for work tools. It started as a way to potentially help people. But obviously, capitalism sunk her teeth into it, and now all of a sudden, companies are saying, hey, you can split your burrito into 4 payments, 4 easy payments of $4. Yes, burritos do now cost $16. If you can use them correctly, you're okay, but you miss one payment and you best believe your credit score is gonna get dinged, you are gonna get charged interest. These are no longer safety nets providing funding to underfunded communities. They are predatory. I do not use any of these programs, and I would encourage you to avoid them as well. This question comes from Chaotic is Taken, pros and cons of joint bank accounts. This is a hot topic of mine, but I think the healthiest strategy most often for couples is to have a yours, mine, and ours strategy. Joint bank accounts are great because they make it really easy to split joint expenses, so things like paying for your mortgage or utilities or even date night vacations. But a joint bank account also opens yourself up to a lot of risk. I actually know a couple that had a joint bank account, and one of the partners, developed a pretty bad sports betting addiction and drained that entire bank account. But because he was a joint owner on the account, there was nothing that my friend could really do about it. So if you're opening up a joint bank account with someone, you have to make sure that you really, really trust them. They are financially literate and responsible. And I still encourage even great couples and great relationships to still have their own money, because we all need to have access to rainy day funds. And I just think that it's so important, especially for women, to make sure that they have the money to leave a bad situation in case things go south. User Patricia Honda is tired. She says, what the hell is loud budgeting now? Y'all just be making stuff up. I'm tired. It's safe to say that a lot of people are feeling the burn in their wallets. Everything feels a little bit tighter, from necessities, but also to just like going out with friends. And loud budgeting is very simply when you are transparent about your own money goals and what is available to you. So you have 4 friends getting married next year. They all want you to go to their destination bachelorette parties. They are all having destination weddings and destination engagement parties. It is okay for you to actually talk to them and say, hey, I have some money goals, and if I'm being totally transparent, going to New York for your engagement party, Cabo for your bachelorette, and then Italy for your wedding is not in my budget. I'm currently saving for XYZ. I have to pay off this much debt, but I want to still support you and be there for you as a friend. Talk to me about what is most important for you and what I should really be present at. That type of transparency is entirely what loud budgeting is about, and it's just us being more honest versus going into debt for other people's major moments, or to look cool, or to do stuff just because. Venarius asks, how do you balance saving for the future versus enjoying life now? You have to build infrastructure so you take all the decision making out of your day to day. So when you sign up for your first job, they have you give them a checking account of where you want your paycheck deposited. But did you know you can actually say, hey, I want 75% of my paycheck routed here, I want 10% here, and another 15% here. This helps you really figure out what goes to taking care of future you and what you get to enjoy today. Seeking Wealth _ says, people really think skipping out on their daily $5 coffee will help them become a millionaire. I am kind of torn on this one. I agree. A $5 coffee every day for a whole entire year works out to be roughly a little less than $2,000. That's certainly not getting you to millionaire status in the course of a year. However, the behavior of dollar dribbling oftentimes can lead you to become less wealthy over the course of your lifetime. So what does that mean? If every day you buy that $5 coffee with intention, and it brings you so much joy, and it is the only thing powering you to get to work, go get it. But are you also buying a croissant with that? And then are you also spending $15 on a salad for lunch? And oh, by the way, I didn't really feel like taking public transportation home tonight, so I took a ride share. When you do these little things that add up over time, it can lead to less money in your pocket and less money, more importantly, in your investments over the course of your lifetime. When you are just spending mindlessly, it's not really adding to your life. You will actually end up spending a lot of your money and then looking back and feeling like you have nothing to show for it. So what I say is, if you are going to make little purchases, buy yourself a little treat, do it with intention, do it with meaning, but in situations where you don't need to be spending certain amounts of money, you might be better off allocating that dollar into an investment account for yourself. That money doesn't go away, it just gets to take care of future you. June Crypto 3 says, $20,000 in student loans, still paying the price of bad decisions. I'm sorry that you are still paying off your student loans, but for maybe younger people who are considering higher education, what I really encourage you to do is actually go to BLS.gov, this is the Bureau of Labor Statistics. They have an A through Z occupational handbook. So they have everything from accountant to zookeeper. Through every single one of these jobs, they'll tell you how much education you need, any sort of licensing requirements or graduate degrees or anything like that, roughly what this job would make, also what different sectors pay for that type of job. And that way you actually have a good gut check of, will this degree and major give me the actual career that will fund all of the debt that I might need to be taking to actually get it? Todd Berry says, got this great Chrome extension that searches for discount codes when you shop online. It only takes an extra minute and it never ever finds a discount. Those Chrome extensions, more often than not, they won't really find you anything. But what I do think is real is going through an affiliate website. So things like a Rakuten, before you are going to buy something, they have a relationship with a lot of vendors where they're like, hey, if you drive us traffic, we will give you 10% of each order. And then they turn around and say, we'll give you 5% cash back if you route your order through us. Essentially, you get to split that commission with them. So before I go shopping anywhere, I head to a site like Rakuten. I make sure that I see what sort of cashback I'm able to get, and then I use a rewards credit card so I can get cashback again, or maybe even travel miles. My money culture asks, what should I do first? Pay off my debts, save for an emergency fund, save for a house, or invest? Okay, this is the easy peasy way to go through the waterfall. First and foremost, you want to have an emergency fund. This makes sense because you don't want to get into more financial trouble if the wheel rolls off of your car or your roof caves in. What I personally like to do is say 3 to 6 months of living expenses in a high yield savings account if you're single, or 6 to 12 months of living expenses if you're a head of household. Then we're going to pay off our high interest rate debt. So that's debt anything above 7%, mostly credit cards. Once we have that all paid off, then you can start thinking about investments and saving for a house, so you can continue to pay your low interest rate debt while you start setting money aside for more liquid investments. Dry Entrepreneur 2342 asks, what systems do you use to stop yourself from dipping into your savings? I make it really hard for me to access my own savings. You can have part of your paycheck go towards a checking account, and then part of your paycheck go towards a saving account. So you can say 90% goes to checking, 10% goes towards savings. Then make it some random password into the bank that holds your high yield savings account. Make it hard for yourself to get in. Make it so that you have to click forgot password and go to your email and get a special code and log in again. Because when you put enough barriers in between you and spending from your savings account, you don't feel like you have the right to dig into it. Okay, a Quora user asked, how can learning to negotiate effectively increase your overall wealth? Let me tell you one thing. Rich people love to negotiate everything. I'm talking medical bills. Fun fact, did you know 80% of those have errors in them? They go and they actually negotiate and say, hey, I didn't get these treatments done. Can I get a discount here? And they're getting them. On top of that, things that you get subscriptions for. So your Wi-Fi, your cell phone bill, all of that, you can negotiate it, especially if you have multiple competitors in the area. They want to keep your business and they are willing to offer you a discount or maybe a locked in lower rate for a period of time. You should be negotiating for a raise every single year, and you should be negotiating things that are big expenses for you, like rent, as well as what you would pay for a car, and especially when you go to make big purchases like a home. The easiest way to negotiate is to, one, Do your research, know exactly what the market rates for everything are and where you might be able to find those discounts. 2, it's to really prepare and set yourself up for success with all of your information and then make a very clear ask and then stop talking. Most of us try to walk it back or say, oh, but if not, it's okay. Don't say any of that stuff. Just wait for them to respond. But more often than not, you'll actually find that many providers, many employers will actually meet you halfway. So once you actually get what you want, make sure that you deliver on your end of the bargain and continue being a great employee or being a loyal customer. This question comes from irrational_thoughts 1. Are spending tracking apps really worth it? So it depends. Spending tracking apps are a great way to see what you're spending on. You can track it all you want, but if you're spending more than you have coming in the door, you're still going to be in a net negative. So what I really encourage you to actually do is build out a budget that you can live with and not be so tight on every single expense, but have categories. My favorite strategy is the 50-30-20 method. 50% of your after-tax take-home pay goes to needs, so things like your basic housing and transportation and groceries. 30% of your after-tax take-home pay goes to wants, so that's like getting drinks with your friends or going out to eat or going to a concert, and 20% goes to taking care of future you. I'm talking debt pay down and investing. On Reddit, user DeepFunny5242 wrote a post about the huge impact of quitting social media on my finances. I could not agree more. And this is coming from someone whose entire career is on social media. But I feel like social media has convinced so many of us that we do not have a good life. And the problem of that is, in our parents' generation, our parents would take their binoculars and look at the Joneses across the street and be like, ooh, the Joneses got a new station wagon. But now, instead of being limited to other people who are in your general income tax bracket, we have unfettered access to everybody on earth. All of a sudden, I can see what the inside of a private jet looks like. I have no business knowing what that looks like because I don't have private jet money. And all of a sudden, it looks like everybody's on vacation all the time, all at once. You're the only loser at home, doing your job, working, living a normal life. But in fact, that's quite the opposite of true. I really encourage everyone to think about the incentives. If somebody is really hardcore promoting something, is it because they make an affiliate commission when you buy one? Cult following items, maybe you don't need those things to be happy. Someone is just trying to sell them to you. Decent Age 1707 asks, how many different pots/accounts do you put money into for saving? I have a big pot that is my emergency fund. I have a vacation fund. I had a home down payment fund. I bought the house. We have a family planning fund. In many cases, when you have your money at a high yield savings account, you're actually able to divvy up where your actual cash is earmarked without having to open a bunch of other accounts. And what I like to do is I actually label the names, including a dollar amount. So say emergency fund, $10,000. And that way, if I see the dollar value slip below that amount, I can then top that account up because I know it needs a little bit more money. Dependent Tap 8999 asks, how much do you trust generic AI like ChatGPT for financial advice? Point blank, not at all. Not only are these generic AI platforms not registered investment advisors with the SEC, but ChatGPT in particular recently just came out and said that they are no longer answering medical, financial, or legal questions, and my guess is it's because they ran out of arbitration budget. Listen, I think AI is truly going to be such a big help in the personal finance space, and that is why I built my own startup called Ask Dolly. You can check it out at askdolly.com. We are a registered investment advisor with the SEC. You can get on-demand personal finance knowledge 24/7. And then if you do ask an incredibly niche personal question, we connect you with a live human certified financial planner to make sure that you can get the financial advice you deserve, not just some generic AI slop. Sam RC 1987 says, I'm just a guy heavily banking on his Pokemon cards, Pogs, and Beanie Babies to provide his only shot at retirement. What I encourage people to think about when it comes to things like art or collectibles or even wine, your item is only worth what someone is willing to pay for it. Do they have value as assets? Yes. However, you have to remember, the market for collectibles, for art, for wine sellers, they're not as liquid as things like the stock market, or even crypto, or even real estate. There are only so many people who actually want collectibles. In some cases, if it's ultra rare and there's a huge community and a cult following behind it, yes, you have assets and they might be worth something, but they're really only worth what someone is willing to pay. And more often than not, in an economic downturn, people are much less willing to pay for collectibles, things like Pokemon cards, because they have to pay for things like food, things that are actually necessities. Inspector number 376 asks, how do you handle unexpected expenses when your budget is already tight? This is exactly why we need to have an emergency fund. I'll give you a story. When I had just moved to New York, I had a little bit of an incident with a bread knife and chopped off the tip of my index finger. I went to the ER. The entire bill ended up being $16,000. Even after insurance, I still owed roughly, I want to say $1,300. The problem was I didn't have that money. Oh, but wait, my emergency fund did. I had been setting aside money into an emergency fund, and that was able to cover my medical bill. Even if you don't think of your emergency fund as money you have access to today, it can bail you out of a really big, sticky situation. So when your budget is tight, what I encourage you to do is simple. Slowly start setting money aside. This can be $10 a month, $20 a month, whatever you have access to. Over time, that emergency fund will grow. And when you have an unexpected expense, you will have the dollars to be able.
Prepare for battle.
Right. That's right. Good. Go on. Now you're done. Yeah. Right.
30 seconds to battle.
Okay. Yeah. Right through here. With pleasure. All part of the plan. Over here. Stay out of my way and maybe you won't get hurt. God damn it. Right. You sure? I'm under attack. Thanks for that. All right. Nice one. Yeah. Careful. Right. Okay. Good. Mind if I do? Nice one.
is under attack.
Right through here.
Worthy treatment. Your bottom tower is under attack. Dire's courier has been killed. Dire's courier has been killed. Your bottom tower is under attack.
Now your turn. Oh, much obliged. Don't get caught. Right. Right. Sure. Careful. Right. I'll take that. Yeah.
Your middle tower is under attack. Dire's courier has been killed.
This one. Oh, like it. That's right. Hello. Nice one.
Your bottom tower is under attack.
Over here.
Your middle tower is
take
under
that.
attack.
There's no escape. Right through here.
Dire's structures are fortified.
Yeah.
Dire's courier has been killed. Your top tower is under attack. Your middle tower is under attack. Your middle tower is under attack. Dire's courier has been killed. Your middle tower is under attack.
Respawn and die. Right. Yeah.
Your top tower is under attack.
Now you're talking. Don't get caught. You sure? I won't hurt you.
Your middle tower Your top tower is under attack. Your top tower has fallen. Your middle tower is under attack.
Yes, a thicker. Champion.
Your middle tower is under attack.
Dark Reed Rising. I see
Your middle tower is under attack.
it. Okay. Go on. Right through it. After him. Over here. Little wiggle, little fish.
Your top tower is under attack. Your top tower is under attack.
Yeah. Right. You're mine. This way. You sure? That's right.
Your middle tower is under attack. Your middle tower is under attack.
There's no escape. Then you think? Okay.
Your top tower bottom tower is under attack. Your bottom tower has fallen.
Hey, fishy, fishy. I'll take that.
Radiant structures are
This in
fortified.
no time.
Dire's structures are fortified.
Right through here. Yeah. All part of the plan. Now your turn. It's a beatdown. Don't get caught. That's right. Go on. You sure? After him. I'm under attack. Right. Right through here. Right. But the... Oh.
Your bottom tower is under attack.
Right. This way. Right. I'll take that. You sure? Right through here. Yeah. Nice one. There's no escape. I'm under attack. Right. Is that all right? Careful. Right. Yeah.
Your bottom tower is under attack. Dire's courier has been killed. Worthy tribute.
That's right. Then you think? It's a beatdown. You fishy. Over here. Over here. Now that's payback.
Your bottom tower is under attack.
Now you're talking.
Dire structures are
That's
fortified.
right. I'm under attack. Yeah.
Radiant structures
take
are
that.
fortified.
Go on. You
Your
sure?
bottom tower is under attack.
Leave a bit of little bit. All part of the plan. Nice one.
Your bottom tower has fallen. Your middle tower is under attack.
Right through here. Get caught. Careful. Psst, this way.
Your middle tower is under attack.
That's right.
Radiant's courier has been killed.
Yeah. The fun. Careful.
Roshan has fallen to the jungle.
Sure.
Immortality!
More like it. Right through here. Don't get caught. Now your turn.
Your bottom tower is under attack. Radiant structures are fortified. Your bottom tower is under attack. Your bottom tower is under attack. Your middle tower is under attack. Your bottom tower is falling. Your middle tower is under attack. Your middle tower has fallen. Your middle tower is under attack.
Right through here.
Radiant structures are fortified. Your middle tower is under attack. Your middle tower has fallen. Your middle barracks has fallen. Your middle barracks has fallen. Your middle tower is under attack. Your middle tower has fallen. Your middle tower has fallen. Your ancient is under attack. Dire victory. Radiant's bottom tower is under attack. Dire's top tower is under attack. Dire's top tower is under attack. Radiant's middle tower is under attack. Radiant structures are fortified. Radiant's middle tower is under attack. Radiant's middle tower has fallen. Dire's bottom tower is under attack. Radiant's top tower is under attack. Dire's bottom tower is under attack. Dire's middle tower is under attack. Dire's structures are fortified. Fit for a queen. Radiant's middle tower is under attack. Dire's middle tower is under attack. Dire's middle tower has fallen. Dire's middle tower is under attack. Dire's top tower is under attack. Radiant's top tower is under attack. Radiant's top tower is under attack. Radiant's top tower is falling. Dire's courier has been killed. structures are fortified. Dire's top tower is under attack. Dire's top tower is falling. Dire's top tower is under attack. Invisibility metaphor is missing. Listeners, is under attack. Dire's top tower has fallen. Radiant's Dire's middle tower is under attack. Dire's middle tower has fallen. Dire's bottom tower is under attack. Dire's top tower is under attack. Dire are scanning. Roshan has fallen to the Radiant. Worthy tribute. Secret is out. Rouge. Radiant's turret has been killed.
Did you know that in Uma Musume, Kitasan Black is the
players
ever
ignored
since
the
appearing
umpire.
at the front of the pack in the first anniversary key art, Kitasan Black has slowly fallen to the back of the group in each subsequent anniversary art before finally being completely absent in the most recent key art for the 5th anniversary of the game. RIP in peace, Kitasan Black. She will Harakite Iko no longer. Follow for more horse. Did you know that in Uma Musume, Kitasan Black is now gone?
and just kept playing. Ma Long was facing Wang Chuqin in the 2023 ITTF World Table Tennis Championship semifinals, and what happened was astonishing. The players were playing as normal when suddenly a very odd thing happened. After Wang Chuqin served and the ball was in play, the umpire calls the score early, thinking the ball is not going to land on the table.
4-10.
The umpire notices his mistake and tries to correct himself by telling the players to keep playing.
No, still in play. Still in play.
And the point ends in Ma Long's favor. The players ignored the umpire and just kept playing. Ma Long was facing Wang Chuqin in the 2023